What's going on, guys? Nate Dogg here, bringing you a beginner's guide on race passives for Elder Scrolls Online. Before we dig into that, I want to go over alliances with you. There are 3 alliances: the Daggerfall Covenant, Eldurian Dominion, and Ebonheart Pact. If you don't have any race, any alliance unlocked, what race you pick will determine what alliance you are in. If you pick Bren, Redguard, or Orc, you will be part of the Daggerfall Covenant. If you pick High Elf, Wood Elf, and Khajiit, you'll be part of the Eldurian Dominion. If you pick the Ebonheart Pact, you will be your races you'll have would be Nord, Dark Elf, and Argonian. The 10th race you can have is Imperial, but you will need the Imperial upgrade. That race will be allowed to pick any of the alliances. Alliances in the game don't really matter unless you are decided to play PvP content. If you are planning to play group PvP, I would suggest you would go figure out what alliance your group is playing and pick the race that fits that alliance. So, without further ado, let's dig into these passives. We'll start in the Daggerfall Covenant with the Breton. The very first passive they have is called Opportunist. Increases their experience gain with light armor by 15%. Also, increase your alliance points gained by 1%. Next passive they have is Gift of Magnus, increasing your max magicka by 2,000. Next passive they have is Spell Atonement, increasing your spell resistance by 2,310. Also, this effect is doubled if you are afflicted with burning, chilled, or concuss, and increase your magicka recovery by 100. Last passive for this race is Magicka Mastery, reducing the magicka cost of your abilities by 7%. Over to the Redguard now. First passive they have is Wayfarer, increasing the experience gained with one-handed and shield skill line by 15%. Also, increase the duration of any eaten food by 15 minutes. Next passive they have is Martial Training, reduce the cost of your weapon abilities by 8%. Also, reduce the effectiveness of snares applied to you by 15%. Next ability they have is Conditioning, increasing your max stamina by 2,000. Last passive they have is Adrenaline Rush. When you deal direct damage, you restore 950 stamina. This effect can only occur once every 5 seconds. Now, over to the Orc to finish up the Daggerfall Covenant. First passive they have is Craftsman, increasing your experience gain with heavy armor skill line by 15%. Also, increase your crafting inspiration gain by 10%. Next passive they have is Brawny, increasing your max stamina by 2,000. Next passive, Inflicting Rage, increasing your max health by 1,000. When you deal damage with a weapon ability, you heal for 600 health. This can only occur once every 4 seconds. That finishes up the Daggerfall Covenant. We'll move over now into the Eldurian Dominion with the High Elf. High Elf's first passive is Highborn. Increase your experience gained with Destruction Staff skill line by 15%. Also, increase your experience gained by 1% while leveling. Next passive they have is Spell Recharge. When you activate a class ability, you restore 640 magicka or stamina based on whichever is lowest. This effect only can occur once every 6 seconds. Also, when you are using an ability or channel, when you are using ability with a channel or cast time, you take 5% less damage. Next passive is Cybane's Boon, increasing your max magicka by 2000. Last passive is Elemental Talent, increasing your spell damage by 258. Over now into the Wood Elf. First passive they have is Acrobat, increasing your experience gained with bow skill line by 15%. Also decrease your fall damage taken by 10%. Next passive they have is Hunter's Eye, increase your stealth detection radius by 3 meters. Also increase your movement speed by 10% and your physical and spell penetration by 1,500 for 6 seconds after using a roll dodge. Next passive they have is Yurfi's Endurance, increasing your stamina recovery by 258. Next passive they have is Resistant Affliction, increasing your max stamina by 2000 and poison resistance by 2310. Also, you gain immunity to poison status effect. Now we'll go over to the last one in the Alderian Dominion with the Khajiit. First passive they have is Cut Purse, increasing your experience gain with medium armor skill line by 15%. Also increase your chance to successfully pickpocket by 5%. Next passive they have is Robustness. Increase your health recovery by 100 and your stamina and magicka recovery by 850. Next passive they have is Lunar Blessing. Increase your max health, magicka, and stamina by 825. Last passive they have is Feline Ambush. Increase your critical damage and critical healing by 10%. Also, decrease your detection radius and stealth by 3 meters. That's it for the Dominion. Now over onto the pack. We're going to start with the Dark Elf. First passive they have is Ashlander. Increase your experience gained with the dual wield skill line by 15%. Also reduce your damage taken from environmental lava by 50%. Next passive they have is Dynamic. Increase your max magicka and max stamina by 1,875. Next passive they have is Resistance Flame. Increase your flame resistance by 2,310. Also gain immunity to burn status effect. Last passive for the Dark Elf is Runation. Increase your weapon and spell damage by 258. Now, over to the Nord. First passive for them is Reliever. Increase your experience gained with two-handed skill line by 15%. Also, increase the duration of any consumed drink by 15 minutes. Next passive they have is Resistance to Frost. Increase your max health by 1,000 and cold resistance by 2,310. Also gain immunity to the chilled status effect. Next passive is Stalwart. Increase your max stamina by 1,500. When you take damage, you gain 5 ultimate. This effect can only occur once every 10 seconds. Last passive is Rugged, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 3,960. Now over into the Argonian. First passive they have is Amphibian, increasing your experience gained with Restoration Staff skill line by 15%. Also increase your swimming speed by 50%. Next passive is Life Mender, increasing your healing done by 6%. Next passive is Argonian Resistance, increasing your max health by 1,000 and disease resistance by 2,310. Also gain immunity to the disease status effect. Last one for Argonian is Resourceful. Increase your max magicka by 1,000. When you drink a potion, you restore 4,000 health, magicka, and stamina. Now, last race here, if you have the Imperial upgrade and have the Imperial race unlocked, very first passive they have is a Diplomat. Increase your experience gained with one-handed and shield skill line by 15%. Also increase your gold gain by 1%. Next passive they have is Tough. Increase your max health by 2,000. Next passive is Imperial Metal. Increasing your max stamina by 2,000. Last passive for the Imperial is called Red Diamond. Reduce the cost of all your abilities by 3%. Also, when you deal direct damage, you heal yourself for 333 and restore 333 magicka and stamina. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. Well, there you have it for the race passives. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.